Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Calm is Hot. I'm your host, Jade. My pronouns are she, her, hers. We have a very exciting guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course. Thanks for having me here, Jade. My name is Christina Arias. I am a trans woman. I live in Sacramento, California, and well, I've done a lot of work in the advocacy and activist field. I also have a engineering degree from the University of Guadalajara. And currently I'm working as a TV host in one of the TV shows in Sacramento, California. And well, I've been doing a lot of stuff and I met Jay like 5 years ago, I think so. But yeah, almost 5 or 6 years ago. I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time, but it's a pleasure being here. I admire how intelligent, how smart she is. And well, you all are very, very, very lucky to have her as a teacher.
What? Okay, first of all, thank you so much. That was way too kind. This is about you today. And as you mentioned, you've been a part of a lot of different projects. You have your engineering degree, you have been your TV host, you are an activist, you do a lot for the trans community and for the trans Latin community. So I'm hoping that we can kind of talk a little bit about that. Do you want to start with what motivated you to get into working to help the trans community?
Of course. You know what? Since I was in Mexico, I grew up in Mexico. I came to the States like 6 years ago. And when I was growing up trans in Mexico, I realized that the environment with trans, especially with trans girls, it was very toxic, very bad. Like, there was no friendship, there was no sisterhood. It was really hard to have like real friends as a trans woman in Mexico. But well, we all know that. And if you don't know, I will remind you. Mexico is one of the probably the number one country most dangerous in the world to be a trans woman. After is Brazil, and then in third place, India. So yeah, the trans women in Mexico are is a community that it's very marginalized, and that explains why it is so hard and toxic like growing up as a trans woman in that environment. So I realized that the toxicity, the competitivity, and the lack of sisterhood that there was in our community. So when I came to the States, I found, especially in Sacramento, like a like a virgin, I don't know how to say it, like a virgin field where there was a lot of things to do, especially like with the trans Latinas. I found out that white and black trans women were more organized and they were more united in some way. And we were like a total mess. We were a total mess. And I was always trying to you know, put that idea in the mind of many of my trans Latinas that we don't need to compete to each other. We need to build together. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to do all over California, but especially in Sacramento. Like, we don't have to be super best friends, but we can live in sisterhood and we can support each other because this is not about compete to each other or damage to each other. This is about growing up and build each other.
Thank you so much for that really rich response. There are a few things I want to just ask about if it's okay. So, the first thing you mentioned was growing up in Mexico and realizing the culture and whatnot. Would you say that you personally had an okay time coming out as trans to like family or in your community?
It was definitely not an okay time. I don't want to sound like a victim all the time, but it was really hard, like going to school and when you're transitioning and when you don't look cis, especially like 12, 10 years ago, it was really hard to gain the respect from teachers and from people. It was really, really hard. I consider myself that I was very lucky because I was able to finish my college education, but I'm aware that not many trans women are able to accomplish that. So with my family, that was another thing. It was really hard. It was a really hard process, not only for me, but also for them, because I started isolating myself at a very young age when I realized that I was different, that I was special, and I didn't have like a lot of trans women positive models. And I was like, I was kind of scared. I didn't know what to do. I was very young and I was like, I don't want a life like the girls that I see in the street or these girls in the newspapers. And it was really hard to find like a positive role model to show my family, to let them know, oh, look at this. She's trans, she's beautiful, and she's a successful people in life. There was just a few trans girls that they were like lucky enough or privileged enough to be in that position. It was not like the way it is now, with TikTok and Instagram and all the social networks. Many trans women, I mean, so many people, but especially trans women, they don't have to put themselves in like very risky professions that back in the day it was the only way out. It was the only way to survive. So yeah, it was really hard. It was really hard for my family, for everybody, especially for me. But you know, I think everything is about time. And today I have a beautiful relationship with my family. Actually, my dad's coming today. I'm very happy. I'm gonna pick him up at the airport later. And yeah, well, this life has been a journey that I think it is worth it.
Wow, you have such a powerful, honest experience that I can relate to in my own way. I think similarly, it's hard, when we look back 10 years ago and there was such little visibility, and it's really hard to communicate with people that you love. And now I think that we both are privileged to look the way that we look, and to be more authentic with who we are and feel more comfortable. I love that your family's accepting. I love that you're going to go pick up your dad, and that you have built this career and these networks and friendships. And that's one thing that I want to talk about, is kind of like that toxicity of like competition between I like it's a really, really toxic thing. And let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that it's like really hard for cis women, like people who are born women who identify as women. I think it's really hard for them to like live in a sexist world. And then when you are transgender and you transition to femininity, if you're in the binary like you and I are, like trans women, it can become really competitive and a little bit toxic. And I remember we met because you originally went to one club and you were kind of looking for friends. And it was almost as if you were met with like a cold shoulder and even some hostility. Do you want to just say more to that?
Yeah, I remember very well that time we met, especially because, I was pretty new in San Francisco. I mean, I don't live in San Francisco and I didn't live in San Francisco, but I was visiting San Francisco with one of my friends. And I just realized that some girls in the club, they were not smiling at me. And I was trying, to socialize. I'm a very social person and I can talk for hours, as you can see. But I remember that night, the only girl that smiled at me was Jade. And from there we started talking and I got her phone number, she got mine. I think we added each other to Facebook and Instagram, and well, the rest is the story. We started meeting and, going to the beach and having good experiences. It was really nice to have this experience with Jade because I think, uh, like generally women, cis or trans, mm, like it's very hard for most of them to have like this sisterhood and trust each other and work as a team. And I think that you and I, we just flow like, I don't know, like we just flow with the wind. And it was really nice. It was really nice to have that friendship. It was one of the first girls that I met in California. Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I'm very happy to be your friend. I'm very proud of everything, uh, like everything what you're doing, and I think you are bringing a lot of visibility for many young generations. And I'm sure there might be like some student or some little girl in college that probably see you or knows you and probably admires you, and probably you're becoming like a role model for her.
Okay, first of all, you gotta stop being so nice to me. This is about you. And you are also a role model. Like you're visible on TV and you're doing so much stuff. And this visibility, this activist work that you've done is changing lives. You are changing lives every day with the beautiful work that you're doing. And one of the things that I just saw you speak about is about the name changes that can happen in Mexico. That is big, big news and big work that's gonna change people's lives. Do you wanna share more about that and maybe celebrate it?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, a few months ago, probably 1 or 2 months ago, we got the news that now Mexican trans girl who are living in the US, now we will be able to change the name and gender in our Mexican birth certificate and our Mexican documents, because back in the day it was not possible. You know, we have had like this resentment or this negative emotion towards my the government of my own country, because uh it was way easier to change my name and like get documents in the US than what it was in the country where I was born. And I was thinking, this is so unfair. This is so unfair that, well, now things are different. The process might be a little complicated. Like every case is different. I think, yeah, this is a very important accomplishment, but I think the Mexico and Latin America, they still have a lot of work to do. Like we still have a lot of work to do because now, yeah, having your name change and your birth certificate and everything, yeah, that's a big accomplishment, but that's not enough. We need to work in security. We need to work in safety. Even, they might be selling as, this news. Oh, the Mexican government is working to build a safe country and this and that. Well, I still have my own doubts, and I still question myself why is still like in the first place as the most dangerous country in the world for trans women. So yeah, that's a big thing. I generally don't want to be that negative, but that's a thing that we need to highlight, especially for our authorities. I think they need to put a lot of work towards the safety of our trans population.
Mm, I totally hear you. And I think that every country should be supporting and taking care of their groups, especially minority groups, trans, LGBT, all of them. But especially if we know research is showing that there's a lot of violence and hostility towards a specific group, The response from any government absolutely should be to look into it and to see how change could be made. And that's one of the reasons why I admire and respect you so much, because you speak up and you call attention to injustices about this your community, more specifically, and you're not afraid to say that change needs to be happening, and you're looking out for the future generations. And
Yeah, you know what? This thing with the birth certificate and passport and like general the Mexican consulate, the Mexican documents, that was a thing that should have done like should have been done years ago because the right to have to choose your own identity and have a document that acknowledge your identity like legally, it's a right that every human being should have. I don't think that we should speak out or we should have fight or protest to try to have or to try to make some people see how important it is. I think we all as humans we have the right to choose our identity and the right to have an official document that acknowledge the people that you are.
that,
So I think, yeah, we are not asking for anything extra. That's just basic human rights.
yes, yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Yes, 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 yes. So that makes me think of some of the other activist work that you have done. Would you like to share or touch on anything? I know that I met you at Trans Pride one year. I think it was in 2019, and you were doing some activist work then with some really big legends in the trans community, trans Latin community. And just want to ask if you want to share any of that.
Yeah, well, I've been very lucky. I've been a very lucky person to have met like beautiful people that inspired me and definitely helped me. One of them, you knew her. I mean, her name is Bianca. She passed away a few years ago, but definitely she inspired me and she opened my mind and she helped me to see how things were before and how things are now. The way she sees things. Bianca was a 68 years old trans woman. She was, she experienced all these things with the Compton's cafeteria riots, which was like the first trans riot in the United States. It was even before Stonewall, and there are not many articles about it. I mean, you can find some YouTube documentaries about it, but not many people are talking about like what happened in Compton's cafeteria. And well, Bianca one was one of the people that helped me to open my mind and you know um she gave me a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, definitely changed my life. I can mention another person, which is Bobby Salcedo, Maria Roman. They are the director and executive director, no, vice president and president of the Trans Latina Coalition, the coalition that is in LA, and they're in charge of provide like a lot of health resources, housing resources, legal resources for for trans women in general.
Mm. These are people who I think are so important to name, because so many times with the visibility, I think there's such a lack of visibility for like trans elders, and especially trans elders of color. So it's really important that we remember and honor trans elders, because they hold the history, the stories, the experiences that, are different from even our own, similar to how our experiences will be different to the next generation. And so I really am touched and deeply appreciative of your willingness to be open to them and to listening and holding space with them in their relationships. And I know, rest in power, Bianca's no longer with us, but even when I got to meet her, she was just like her spirit was like she had a fire within her. Like she didn't take any crap. And I loved her attitude. So thank you so much for honoring her and remembering her. Now, when you speak about the Trans Latina Coalition that's in LA, do you want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I wanted to say is that Bambi Salcedo, she's one of my favorite persons. She's a very well known and recognized activist nationwide. She has a powerful story. She grew up in the streets of Guadalajara, Mexico. She immigrated to the United States. As far as I know, she was put in jail with men being a trans woman and they put you just imagine being a trans woman and being put in a men's facility. I think that's a traumatic thing. And well, she was struggling with so many things in her whole life, like abuse, drug addiction, alcoholism, so many problems, so many bad things. But she's a beautiful example of that you can rise up that and you can bloom into a different and beautiful life. She started school here in the United States. She finished college. She finished her education. I'm not sure, but I think she has a PhD or a master's. I mean, now she's the vice president of the Trans Latina Coalition, and she's been, advocating for the trans community with very important political figures as President Biden, Kamala Harris, and so many people. I mean, she's a very powerful person, but she still remains very humble. And I think that's a beautiful story because she used to be in the streets, living in the streets, and now, like, she finished college, she has an education, she has a powerful job, she changed her life. And I think that's an inspiration for many people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it really is. And it also changes the story that we hear about trans people and especially trans women, where I think so many people feel like the options are so limited. And this story reminds us that the options don't always have to be like a certain way. Like sometimes it's possible to change that story and to change your own story. It's very inspiring. Let's talk a little bit more about you and yours. What I'm sure people are wondering, what got you into TV? How is it? What's it like?
Well, I started back in 2019, I think so. I worked for the LGBT Center in Sacramento like a few years, 2, 3 years. And I remember that we started like a partnership with Univision, and there was nobody who speaks Spanish. I mean, probably there was a person who speaks Spanish, but they were like very shy to be on TV and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. So we had this partnership with Univision, and we were supposed to have like a few segments on TV to promote Sac Pride and to promote like the bilingual services that we were offering in the Sacramento LGBT Center. And well, I started like that, making some segments for Univision, Telemundo, KCRA, ABC 10. And I think from there, I started gaining like a lot of or more like notoriety from the media and social media and like some people they were reaching out to me when they were like listening something about the news like TDOB, TDOR, or what do you think about this new legislation? What do you think about this new bill? And well, they started calling me to speak about this notice, and I think that's how everything started. Now I'm very happy working with DB4 Star. You can watch me on the Roku Channel Tuesday, 8 p.m. And well, I think it's beautiful because I'm really thankful that as a trans person we can do even like way more than just talk about trans issues and advocacy and like all the trans related issues or things. So I'm very thankful that now the career that I'm starting as a TV host is not centered in my transness or in my trans experience, because there is way more than just the trans thing, right? The trans experience
Yeah.
and in me, in any other person. So I'm able to talk about mental health. We don't talk about politics, but mental health and some celebrity news and some other things that we have. Like we have different sections, and that's one of the things that I love. That people, well, right now in the where I am, they are not focusing my they're not focusing my existence in this TV show. They're not focusing my participation on my transness. So I think that's a beautiful thing, and that can happen to every person. I think we are more than just our trans experience. There is way more.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, everything you're saying speaks to me. I feel like for so many people who can relate, it's like we have to fight so hard to be taken seriously, to be valid, to move through our trauma, our mental health, and just to like get in a good place of being ourselves, whatever that looks like, whatever that means. And at some point, I think people, maybe not everybody, but for myself, I definitely reached a point where I was like, there's so much more to me. There's so much more to me than just this, just being trans. Like, I'm a full person. I have so many different interests and thoughts and feelings. So, hearing you speak to this and knowing that you're being appreciated for much more and not just tokenized and always kind of looked at as like, there's the trans girl, let's ask her. It's also maybe does it feel a little bit like,
Stigmatizing.
yeah,
Stigmatized. Yeah.
yeah, it can feel stigmatizing. And especially as you being a trans woman of color, that's even more stigmatizing.
Yeah.
And it can, I think for me, feel really exciting as your friend to hear you say you're being appreciated for, more of who you are.
Yeah. And you know what? This is one thing that hopefully media, or the people who are in the media, hopefully they will understand that there is a way more from trans people, especially trans women, than just, the sexy image or the scandal, or, the bad issues, the bad things that we have to go through. There is way more. And that's one of the things that so many people, especially like famous people, they're trying to change. They're trying to see the people who are in control of the media, that they have been portraying a very wrong image of trans women, well, trans people.
It's yeah, the representation that exists in US media is so small for trans people. It's so tiny. And then when there is representation, it's like very specific stories. And it's like, wait, can we have a little more? Can you show us in a little broader stories and not just always like the stereotypes. For me, that's always been my issue. Like, we're not always this scandal. We're not always like have to be hypersexualized, especially trans women of color. And it doesn't always have to be like a really, 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 really super sad, traumatizing story. It can also just be this person going on their journey, just like anybody else. And I think part of what's hopeful about you being in media is showing people, it's showing young trans people who might be watching, showing any age of trans person who might be watching, oh, look, like we can do this. And obviously, we should both acknowledge, well, we don't, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'll acknowledge that I have like privilege in being like attractive by like beauty standards. So obviously, there are some other things at play that we have, but it doesn't mean that everybody has to become a TV show host or, have a YouTube channel. but it shows people that we can do more.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, we have to. That's one of the conversation that I was having with one of my male friends. He was like, "Oh no, but the biggest thing is because you're pretty or because you look cis." And I was like, "Well, I have to acknowledge that. Yeah, probably I may look cis for many people, and I have a privilege, but." That's not all because there are so many beautiful cis passing trans women out there, and not all of them are, choosing the path or of being a scientist or being in media or, it takes a lot of work too. It's not only like that you're pretty or that you are assertive. I think it takes a lot of, you got to be strong because you're putting yourself right there and you can become a target for some dangerous people and there's still a lot of hate. You Not everyone is gonna love you.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you gotta have like,
like thick skin.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think you're totally correct. I think that's why a lot of trans women who I know, when they become like, when they have like that privilege of blending into society a little more, it's almost as if there's this like, they just want to break. They just want to break from having to constantly go through all the traumatizing stuff. And so they kind of lay low. That's one of the things I've noticed. And for your choosing to be showing and showcasing your personality, your intellect, your humor, like all of the parts of you that make you who you are. It's so amazing. And I just love that you're at TV. I think that's so cool. It's literal visibility. And we need that. We need it so bad.
Thank you, babe.
Yes. So I love you so much for so many reasons. Now, I want to ask you a little bit more about like how you experience being trans and also like culture. So, me being white and Middle Eastern, it's kind of been its own thing. We talked a little bit earlier, but do you feel like you're at a place where you can still feel like you're a part of your culture and still feel close with it and connected with it and still be who you are?
Yeah, I think probably it's easier now that I live in California. Undeniably, like California has a huge Latin population, and everywhere you go, they speak Spanish, right? But I think I still feel, and I will always have, that Latina spicy flavor. But I can also get to know. I was able to know the American culture and how diverse it is, especially in California. I think the first year was probably the hardest one. I was getting to know the culture, like how people were interacting. And yeah, I love California. I love the US. There are some differences, like culturally speaking, but you know, I I enjoy I enjoy both of them because well, I feel like if I was raised here because I practically was born again here. You know, I think I never been so happy like when I moved here, when I started living as my true self and I was able to, go everywhere and having no secrets and, well, risking so many things. But I think I'm very happy about it. That I don't know, like I love the American culture. I love the Latin culture too. But I'm just trying to take the best of every culture and, put it into my daily life.
I love it. I love it. I ask you this because one of the things I notice, and students tell me that the American culture can sometimes be overwhelming. And sometimes it like kind of pushes people into for like losing touch with their culture and like assimilating. And so that's kind of why I was asking because, and this is one of the reasons why I love you. You are like unapologetic about who you are. And I think you communicated it perfectly. Why not be able to pick the best stuff from both and celebrate that? Like those things. I love that. And it's a beautiful reminder that we don't have to only be one or the other.
You know what? This is very funny because this is one of the things that I was talking to one of my friends, and of course, there are things that I don't like about my culture, like specifically talking about chauvinists, Latin America, specifically in Mexico. There are some behaviors, some things that I definitely don't like, don't enjoy about the Latin culture, how many Latin men treat you as a woman. And well, as a trans woman, it could be like even different. So, but in the other side, like American born people, they are different. I mean, I'm sure that there is like a kind of American chauvinist too, but it's different. You know, I feel like way more respected. I feel that they treat me better. I don't know, like probably it's that.
Girl, I'm like, are you sure? Because sexism is everywhere. Like,
Yeah, but you know what? Probably the Latin, especially like Mexican culture, we have no filter. You know, our comedy, our humor is very, very dark, very acid, no filter, like Mexican comedy, especially the culture. You know, the comedy is just like a reflection of the culture and how the people live. So I can say that, especially Mexicans, in our culture, we have no filter, especially when we have to talk about sex, religion, race, and all that stuff. It's sometimes it can not be very nice. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about American culture. Like Americans, they have a lot. We have, well, I consider myself now an American too, Mexican American, but I think we have a lot of freedom in America to talk about and be whoever you want to be. But people still like, you know, respectful and they still like have filter. And Latin America, we have no filter.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanna go back and say I apologize if it seemed like I was discrediting or dismissing you talking about your experience. I clearly don't know
Oh, don't
what it's
worry.
like to grow up in Mexico or to have your experience. And so for me, I really appreciate you kind of giving these additional examples because it does remind me when I think of my Middle Eastern culture inside of the family, it is it's really like no filter. Like I think that you are totally it's resonating with me that like in the US there is a push to be more aware and more respectful of people's differences. And I think if you go to some other countries, it's like zero filter. Like there's no push for that. And I'm not going to generalize the entire Middle East, but like it's it's less encouraged in the Middle
Yeah,
East.
and you know what? I think Middle Eastern people and Latin people, we are very similar. We have very similar cultures. Even our food is very, it might be very similar, you know, very tasty. Like it might be very spicy, very rich. And I think our culture is the same way.
In a lot of ways, I think very similar. Yeah. Yeah. This is why we also kind of understand each other in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying in my own way. And I think that's one of the things that I want to see change. And it's also kind of liberating to be able to have conversations like this where we can acknowledge all of the different moving pieces of our identities and how they influence this and our experiences and how we communicate. And it's also really important for me to mark and just note like it's a liberating experience for us to have this connection like in and of itself. Like
Yeah.
there are trans people who are going through what they're going through and they're alone. And I think that one of the reasons why I'm recording this episode with you is to show people like, here's an example of how friendships can happen and be maintained. And, it doesn't always have to be about competition. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be about how we're different. It can also be, hey, we're different. And society teaches us that we should be competing with another, but we don't have to. We can come together and, talk crap about the things we don't like about our cultures, or talk about the things that are beautiful that we love and share that together. Uh,
Yeah, embrace our differences and our diversity. I think that's what makes our world very beautiful and our culture, of course.
yes, yes. It can be the trans culture.
Yeah, I mean, you can find well, especially in California, you can find people from all over the world, and one day you can go and eat Hawaiian food. Next day you can go and eat Middle Eastern food. Next day Thai food, Mexican food, and you have friend you can have friends from all over the world with different cultures, and I think that's what makes your experience of life richer. Like knowing and experiencing different things.
Yes. Yes. I cannot agree more. Thank you for mentioning that. Now, what's one thing that you kind of learned and or just your general overall growth that you experienced on your journey that you want to share maybe with some people who might be at the beginning of their journey or middle or whatever?
One of the things that I've learned a lot, but I hope so. So I think that no matter how much you think you know, there is always there is always an upcoming chapter where you're gonna learn a different thing that you didn't know before. And don't blame yourself. Don't blame yourself. Especially me. One of the things that I say is like, I wish I knew what I wish I knew back in the day what I know now. But I think you need to live different experiences. You need to live that chapter in your life in order to learn what you know now. So everything is about like being patient and live your life and take risk, but try to be safe. Well, I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I've learned. And embrace. I mean, beauty comes in all different colors and shapes and the cultures. And as a woman, once that you learn and accept that in your mind, in your spirit, I think you will glow and you will bright even more than what you used to glow before, because you will learn to accept and embrace your own beauty with your defects, with your insecurities. I mean, that's the most beautiful experience that we as women we can learn, that you might not be the most beautiful person for everybody, but the other half of the world will find you beautiful inside and outside. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I can say to the younger generations.
Love that. Thank you so, so much for sharing that. It's a powerful reminder that we don't need to always strive for perfectionism, or we don't always need to push for being the best of the best of the best. I think that can be really hard on us and it can make us feel like we're not enough, or, like chasing beauty in and of itself is like a never ending toxic cycle. Like it will never
Well,
end.
especially between trans women, I think it's really hard to feel like satisfied. It is really hard to feel like you don't need anything else. I mean, one of the things that I remember this plastic surgeon was saying is like trans people, they're never satisfied. They always want more. They always want more. They want another. They want to fix another thing. They want a second third nose job. They're like, I think one of the biggest and the best things that we as trans women we should do is go to therapy and try to do this emotional labor with yourself, because no matter how many surgeries and how many things you get done, you will never it will never it will never come that moment where you feel 100% satisfied. So I think you can have some surgeries and modify some things, but I personally don't think that that time where you will feel 100% happy and satisfied, I don't think that ever gonna happen, because you will always find something that you want to change or something that you don't like anymore. It's a never ending cycle.
I'm really glad that you're willing to talk about this because this is really controversial. And a lot of people don't want to talk about this and they don't want to acknowledge it because they're really trying to advocate for like trans people to have access to gender affirming surgeries. So the conversation is always like, hey, we need to get trans people surgeries, access to them, which you and I both fully support. And I want to make that clear. But what you're adding is a piece of the conversation that I think is missing. And it's what happens after you get your surgeries. And it's how are we processing that? How are we healing? How are we feeling connected with ourselves if we choose to have surgeries, right? This is a very specific population within a population of trans people who do choose to have surgeries. How do we, like you said, address the mental health aspect so that you can truly feel like when is enough enough? When will you feel good about it, content with it? I know several girls who just literally are getting surgeries all the time. And the only thing that they're ever thinking about once they're done with one surgery is when is the next? When is the
I
next?
I think it's like a coping mechanism to trauma and to some issues that haven't been solved. And I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, get your things, get your surgeries, get your, I don't know, whatever you want to get done. But I think it's very important to know that if you don't do the emotional labor, surgeries are not gonna fix anything in your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a very, very controversial conversation to have, especially as well, I'll speak for myself, someone who's had surgery, benefits from it, all the things. I've even caught myself being like, well, should I get some more done? Should I do? And some of my friends have gently been like, hey, you actually look different than you did before. Like, if you do more, will you be happy with it? And you're totally right. It was coming from a place of insecurity. It was coming from a place of trying to cope with trauma from my past and my past experiences and not really doing a whole lot of that emotional labor like you've mentioned. And oh my gosh, if one person hears this, I hope it speaks to them. At some point, everybody, whether or not you do surgeries or not, has to do some type of emotional work.
You know what? I want to acknowledge here publicly that that's a thing that I'm sure that I'm not the only one, but I want to acknowledge that I struggle. I struggle very often or all the time, that I say like, oh, I want to get a nose job, or I want to get this, or I want to get that, or I want to modify this. Oh, I feel insecure with this. I think I will look better with a little bit less or a little bit more. I allow myself to experience that emotion, but I know that it comes from a insecurity place, and that's why it's very important to like do that emotional labor.
Yeah. Yeah. Girl, because if it, yeah, if I didn't, I would never stop getting boob jobs. Like I would always like, yeah. And it's like that can happen really easily if we don't check ourselves and be honest with ourselves that we experience insecurity, that we experience that very real trauma and whatnot. So thank you so much for being open and speaking to your truth about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having some health issues and you require surgery to fix that, go ahead. Go ahead. It's fine. Just I think we all need to have in mind that every surgery is a risk and it requires a lot of work, a lot of money and recuperation. And oh my God, it's exhausting.
Yeah, yeah. We can have our own episode just on this.
Yeah, yeah, we should have like a whole episode just talking about surgeries and this whole thing that is happening, especially in the trans community.
Yeah.
Well, that's where we have the experience, right? That would be a very, very huge topic, very spicy topic.
I think I agree. I agree. Yeah. So I want to now ask you about, if it's okay, what it's like to experience your experiences with like relationships, navigating that. You're like super like amazing energy, very lovable, likable, friendly, outgoing. How is that balancing relationships while also being like having a career and all of the things?
I want to make it clear. In my experience, dating as a trans woman and the love life as a trans woman has been like difficult. I'm sure that every person, it doesn't matter, like if they're cis or trans, we all struggle and have difficulties while dating or in relationships and everything. But I think one of the biggest struggles is you as a trans woman, you go out, you go places, you gotta work and you're gonna meet people, you're gonna meet men and not all the time these men know about your condition, and that can be very uncomfortable for some people. And I think especially for us as trans women, we hold a lot of trauma from rejection, and like you spend a lot of time and a lot of energy like trying to be the best version of yourself or the most feminine version of yourself, transitioning with facing all these issues with family, with society, defying all the rules, and putting in risk a lot of things. And now that you're finally feeling, that you're on point, that you feel, how can I say this? Like, I forgot the word, that you feel safe and secure with yourself, you're gonna face like different challenges because you're gonna meet people. Well, in my experience, you're gonna meet men that probably they don't know about your condition, or they never had it they never had an experience, or they never have dated a trans girl. And I mean, that's a whole different process for them. And
Yeah.
not many are, even in California, I think California has a very, very open-minded culture, especially men, but you still find, these people that they're like, okay, no, that's not my thing, or uh, I want to date you or want to go out with you, but I don't know what's gonna happen. I've never dated a trans.
Oh, girl. Oh, I just ended a 2-year relationship because of that exact statement. Yeah, sure. I've never dated a trans girl. I'll give it a try 2 years later. Yeah, this wasn't for me. There it goes. 2 years.
And you know what? So many people they might blame it on our trans experience or our transness, but I I don't think it's just because we are trans or something. I think it
Girl,
has with something within them, inside of them, probably, I don't know, maturity or
are you throwing
emotional.
me under the bus?
No, I'm not saying names.
You're like, girl, it wasn't just because you were trans. It's because you're a mess in relationships. Oh my god, I love you. It's okay. It's true. It's
Oh
definitely
no, I'm not talking about you. I was just trying to, referring to some men that,
sure.
they need some, they need to work, especially like in their emotional intelligence and all that stuff. Because it's one of the things that I experience with men is that they suddenly they don't want to talk about it. They just get in their cave and they're like they shut down on you. And you know, that's a way that they probably are trying to solve some problems, but that's not gonna solve anything. So,
Ooh, mic drop. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. So how can we have better, healthier, more effective communication in relationships?
Well, I think first of all, you need to know yourself. You need to know your traumas, your triggers. Why do you react like that? And we all can achieve that through therapy. I think therapy is a very powerful way that we can know each other. We can know ourselves. Because if you don't know yourself, how are you going to bring all that baggage or all that emotional crap to the relationship? If you haven't worked on your traumas, I mean, you need to know yourself. And if you want if you want to be in a relationship with that person, I think we need to make sure that you need to make sure that that person is working on themselves too. That man is working on himself too. That he knows his traumas, his triggers, and that he's doing something to heal.
Or whoever, because it might be somebody who's like a trans lesbian, or maybe they're dating someone non-binary. I think you and
Yeah,
I are very similar in that we date whoever we just are attracted to or whatever. But so that's why I threw that shout out to, relationships of any kind,
yeah,
whoever. Everybody should be working on their mental health. I'm a huge advocate for that. So thank you for saying that as the first thing.
yeah. I think you need three things in order to survive now, and it's water, air, well, oxygen, and therapy.
Okay, I want four because I also want food.
Oh, and estrogen.
Oh my God, and hormones.
Yeah,
Okay, we should write like just like a trans femme book or something.
yeah.
I love it. Can I ask you, and I've asked you so many questions. In all seriousness, thank you so much for being willing to do this and for being so open. As we kind of come to a close, and I hope you know truly from the bottom of my heart how much I love you and value you as my friend and like all the things. I wonder, do you have any advice for someone who might be listening and wondering about what it's like to be trans and or just maybe some encouraging words?
Well, I think I might say be brave, be very careful with the people that you're hanging out. Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with people that are contributing something positive into your life because, well, we definitely need that support system and keep working on yourself. I mean, sometimes it seems like the end. It feels like it's the end, everything looks dark and we have all these emotions, all these feelings inside our mind telling us that it's over, that there's nothing else, that it's not worth it. But that is not that is not true. I mean, even when you're in your darkest moment, there is always hope, and you need to be brave and go ahead. Yeah, build a support system that will be there to encourage you and to make you laugh, especially in those dark days.
Love that. Thank you so, so much for sharing that. I think that is really helpful advice to hear, especially for maybe, any age of trans person who is battling whatever they're going through or having a different journey and being really tested right now. So I feel grateful that you're willing to give this advice. I think that it's something I wish I would have had when I was younger, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Girl, I wish that I could have gone on YouTube and just found people talking about this like how we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So,
And, having a circle of friends that were very empathic with our trans experience and supporting you, or even just feeling their support, their emotional support. I think that's priceless, and that's very important, especially if you are starting. If you are starting.
yeah, yeah. I'm so grateful for you. Is there any last words you want to share or anything that or do you feel pretty good about everything?
I feel very thankful for being part of this project. I know that this you're doing an amazing job, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm sure that this will make a very positive impact in the lives of the people that are watching. And thank you so much for having me. You're such a beautiful person, such a beautiful woman, inside and outside. Very talented, very intelligent, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram.
Oh, yeah. So thank you so much for all the sweet, kind words. Like I retweet all of the things right back at you, all the love, all the affirmations. You're such an amazing human being. And I admire you so deeply. What is a way that people can find you on social media? Are you comfortable with them finding you? Are you comfortable with them like watching your show? All of that stuff.
Yeah, I you can find me on Instagram as a bluer, like blue with an R at the end, bluer underscore velvet.
Yes. BLUER underscore VELVET.
Yeah. I think we might be able to like write it in the description box.
Yes. Oh,
Probably that will be easier. You can, I don't know, you can follow the podcast Instagram too. And yeah.
yes.
So I think that's it. Thanks for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on my podcast. I love you so much. I can't wait to see you.
I know. I can't wait to hang out together again.
Yeah. Let's go to Miami.
I know. Hot summer girls.
Yeah. Okay. I love you. I'll let you go. Thank you so
Love
much.
you too, babe. Thank you so much. And goodbye. See you soon.